The Dauntless journeyed home through the stars, carrying a cargo far more valuable than the components it had delivered. Knowledge that would forever change humanity's place in the universe. As Earth grew from a distant point of light to the blue-green jewel of home, Mercer stood on the bridge, contemplating all they had witnessed. The crew had been changed by their encounter, carrying with them glimpses of possibilities beyond human imagination. "Transmission from Lunar Base Echo," announced Park. "Commander Ellis is waiting to debrief us." Mercer smiled. "Tell her we're coming home with quite a story." When the council convened to hear their report, the chamber fell into stunned silence as Mercer explained how humanity's unique consciousness, their stubborn individuality that they had always taken for granted, had provided the key to communicating with an entity that had baffled the ancient Alani for generations. "This invitation to join the Council of Advanced Species," Council President Adama said eventually. "What does it mean for Earth?" "It means everything changes," Mercer replied, simply. "The Alani have already begun sharing technology, knowledge, history of the galaxy, but more importantly, they're sharing perspective. The understanding that our so-called limitations might actually be our greatest strengths. As humanity took its first tentative steps into a much larger community of intelligent beings, the story of the Dauntless and its response to an alien SOS spread throughout the galaxy. In countless worlds and civilizations, beings unlike humans in nearly every way came to know one universal truth about the young species from Earth. When the universe calls for help, humans answer. Distress call." The message arrived on a Tuesday. Commander Ellis stood motionless before the central monitor at Lunar Base Echo, her weathered face bathed in the soft blue glow of alien text scrolling across the screen. The translation matrix had been working for nearly 18 hours straight, processing the strange signal that had been intercepted by deep space arrays scattered throughout the solar system. "Is it finished?" Ellis asked, her voice barely a whisper in the hushed command center. Technical Officer Reed nodded, fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "Final verification complete. The translation is accurate to 98% certainty." Ellis read the message again, though she had already memorized every word. "To any sentient species capable of receiving this transmission, our civilization faces extinction. The void cascade has consumed 17 systems. Our defensive capabilities have failed. Our evacuation efforts are insufficient. We require immediate assistance. Attached are coordinates and specifications. May mercy find us all." "It's an SOS," murmured Science Director Vell, her dark eyes wide with wonder and concern. "From a species we've never even met," Ellis nodded slowly. "And they've included technical specifications for something. Engineering is still trying to make sense of it." The room fell silent as the weight of the situation settled upon them. Humanity had only achieved faster-than-light travel 30 years ago. Their presence in the galaxy was minimal. A handful of colonies, some mining operations, and exploration vessels cautiously mapping the stars. They were newcomers to the cosmic stage, their technology primitive compared to civilizations that had been traversing the stars for millennia. "We need to inform the Council," Reed said finally. Ellis sighed. "They'll debate for weeks. By then, whoever sent this will be—" The doors to the command center slid open with a pneumatic hiss, and Chief Engineer Thomas burst in, his face flushed with excitement. "Commander, we figured it out!" Ellis turned. "The specifications? Yes. It's brilliant, actually." Thomas projected a complex schematic into the air between them. "It's a request for parts. Specialized components. They need to construct some kind of defensive barrier against this void cascade. They've included precise engineering requirements, material specifications, everything." Vell frowned. "Can we even manufacture these?" Thomas nodded emphatically. "That's just it. We can. They're complex, but not beyond our capabilities. It's almost as if—" He hesitated. "As if what?" Ellis prompted. "As if the message was specifically crafted for our level of technology," Thomas finished. "Like they knew exactly what we could and couldn't produce." Ellis studied the rotating schematics, a plan already forming in her mind. The Council would indeed debate, argue, and delay. That was the nature of bureaucracy. But Lunar Base Echo had resources, manufacturing capabilities, and a small fleet of FTL vessels for supply runs. How long would it take to produce these components? She asked. Thomas calculated quickly. 3 weeks, maybe 4 if we encounter problems. Ellis straightened, her uniform with a decisive tug. Reed, draft a response to the signal. Inform them that help is coming. Vel, I need a complete threat assessment of this void cascade. Tomas, begin production immediately. Commander, Reed said cautiously, the Council hasn't authorized— I'll deal with the Council, Ellis interrupted. Sometimes, asking forgiveness is better than asking permission, especially when lives are at stake. As her team dispersed to their tasks, Ellis gazed at the alien message once more. Humanity might be young among the stars, but they understood one universal truth. When someone cries for help, you answer, no matter how far they had to go. The fabrication bays of Lunar Base Echo hadn't been silent for 23 days straight. The massive manufacturing complex, carved into the moon's regolith, hummed with relentless activity, as assembly lines crafted components that had never before existed in human hands. Commander Ellis stood on the observation deck, watching robotic arms weave exotic alloys into intricate patterns. Below, engineers and scientists worked alongside the machines, making adjustments and quality checks with meticulous care. Final batch will be complete in 6 hours, Tomas reported, joining her at the railing. Dark circles rimmed his eyes from weeks of minimal sleep. The loading crews are standing by. Ellis nodded. The Dauntless is ready for departure. Captain Mercer completed the final systems check this morning. She's the fastest ship we have. Should reach the coordinates in 11 days at maximum burn. A soft chime interrupted them as Reed's voice came through the comm system. Commander, incoming transmission from Earth. The Council is requesting your immediate presence. Ellis sighed. Tell them I'll be there shortly. The holographic faces of the 7 Council members materialized in the conference room, their expressions ranging from concern to outright anger. Commander Ellis, Council President Adama began. You have diverted significant resources, mobilized a military vessel, and initiated first contact protocols without authorization. This constitutes a serious breach of protocol. Ellis stood tall. With respect, Madam President, the situation required immediate action. The distress signal could be a trap, interrupted Councillor Webb. Or a misunderstanding. We know nothing about these aliens or this supposed void cascade. You've committed humanity to an interstellar rescue mission based on a single message. I've committed 1 ship and a cargo of specialized parts, Ellis countered. Parts that they specifically requested and that we were able to produce. If we waited for the full diplomatic and scientific assessment you're suggesting, these people, whoever they are, would likely be dead. Councillor Leon leaned forward. And what if you're sending Captain Mercer and her crew to their deaths? Have you considered that possibility? Ellis had. Every night for the past 3 weeks, lying awake on her cot, she had imagined every possible outcome, including the worst ones. But the alternative, doing nothing, was unthinkable. The Dauntless will approach with all precautions in place, she explained. Captain Mercer has full authority to abort if the situation appears hostile. But consider this. An advanced civilization in desperate need reached out across the stars, and their message found us. I believe there's a reason for that. The Council. Members exchanged glances. Finally, President Adama spoke again. What's done is done. The Dauntless will proceed. But we're dispatching the Horizon to follow at a safe distance as backup. And Commander, when this is over, regardless of the outcome, there will be a formal inquiry. I understand, Madam President. After the Council, members' holograms faded, Ellis made her way to the launch bay where final preparations were underway. The Dauntless, a sleek exploration vessel refitted for this mission, dominated the cavernous space. Captain Mercer, a tall woman with close-cropped, gray hair, supervised the loading operations. She noticed Ellis approaching and smiled grimly. I hear we have a shadow for our journey. Ellis nodded. The Horizon will be trailing you by 2 days. Consider it insurance. Not a vote of confidence from the Council, I take it? They're being cautious. I can't blame them. Ellis handed Mercer a small data crystal. This contains everything we know about the signal origin and our analysis of the void cascade. It's not much, but it might help. Mercer pocketed the crystal. Any final orders, Commander? Ellis looked up at the ship that would soon journey farther than any human vessel had gone before. Trust your instincts. Help if you can. But bring your crew home safely. That's the plan. Mercer extended her hand. See you in about a month. Ellis clasped it firmly. Good hunting, Captain. 6 hours later, the Dauntless slipped free of lunar gravity and accelerated toward the stars, carrying humanity's answer to a desperate plea from the unknown. Day 9 of the journey found Captain Mercer in the Dauntless's observation lounge, staring out at the unfamiliar stars. The ship had passed beyond the frontier of normal human exploration 3 days ago. Now they moved through truly uncharted space. Captain? Dr. Patel, the mission's xenobiologist, approached with a tablet in hand. I think you should see this. Mercer took the device, scanning the complex graphs and images. Have you made progress with the biological data they sent? Yes, and it's illuminating. Patel brought up a holographic display showing molecular structures. We've been analyzing the physiological information included with the distress call. These aliens, they're calling themselves the Alani, are carbon-based, but their cellular structure is fundamentally different from ours. Different how? Their cells can alter their molecular configuration in response to external stimuli at a rate that's frankly astonishing. It appears to be an evolved defense mechanism. Patel manipulated the hologram, showing cellular breakdown. But the void cascade seems to disrupt this ability. From what we can tell, it's some kind of energy field that destabilizes matter at the quantum level. Mercer frowned. And the components we're bringing them? Part of a shield system, we think. Something that can create a barrier against this quantum effect. Patel hesitated. But there's something else. Something strange. Before she could continue, the ship's AI announced, Captain, we're receiving a new transmission from the Alani. The observation lounge's main screen activated, showing a face that was almost, but not quite, human. The being had smooth, bluish skin, large eyes with vertical pupils and no visible nose, just small breathing slits where a nose would be on a human face. Greetings, humans of the vessel Dauntless, the alien spoke in surprisingly clear English. I am Coordinator Nevin, of the Alani Collective. We detect your approach and are, frankly, astonished. We did not expect such a swift response. Mercer stepped forward. I'm Captain Mercer. We received your distress call and are bringing the components you requested. We should arrive at your coordinates in approximately 2 days. The alien's eyes widened slightly. You come personally? We anticipated you would send automated transport. This is unexpected. Our policy is to respond to distress calls directly, Mercer explained. Though no such formal policy existed. It had simply been her decision, shared by Ellis and her crew, that sending help meant going themselves. Fascinating. Nevin seemed to study Mercer closely. Our data on human behavior patterns did not predict this response. Mercer tensed slightly. You've been studying us? We monitor many emerging species. The galaxy is vast, but life follows patterns. Nevin paused. Captain, I must warn you. The situation has deteriorated. The void cascade has accelerated its expansion. Our remaining habitable zone will collapse within 15 days. All the more reason for us to hurry, Mercer replied. Is there anything else you need from us before we arrive? No. The components are all we require. Nevin's expression shifted subtly. Though I must express curiosity, why would you risk yourselves for a species you've never met? The question hung in the air for a moment before Mercer answered, Because you asked for help. After the transmission ended, Dr. Patel turned to Mercer. Captain, what I was trying to tell you earlier, the Alani aren't just any alien species. Based on their biological data, they're one of the oldest species in this section of the galaxy. Their civilization might be millions of years old. Security. Chief Reeve, who had been silently observing the exchange, stepped forward. So why would an ancient advanced civilization need our help? Why send an SOS to us specifically? Mercer looked back at the stars. That's what we're going to find out. In her quarters that night, Mercer reviewed all the data they had on the Alani and the mysterious void cascade. Something didn't add up. The distress call, the perfectly manufacturable components, the way Nevin seemed surprised by their personal response. As she was about to turn in for the night, communications officer Park called through the intercom. "Captain, we're detecting unusual energy readings ahead. It appears to be the edge of the void cascade." Mercer rushed to the bridge. On the main view screen, space itself seemed to warp and distort, rippling with dark energy that defied the sensors. "Attempts to analyze it. Reduce speed," she ordered, "and run a full scan. Let's see what we're really dealing with." As the Dauntless approached the boundary between normal space and the consuming void, the crew stared in silent awe at the phenomenon that threatened an entire civilization. And perhaps, eventually, their own. The Dauntless slowed as it approached. The Alani system, its sensors straining to make sense of the chaos ahead. The void cascade formed a swirling boundary of distorted space-time, devouring everything it touched and steadily encroaching on the system's inner planets. "It's beautiful, in a terrifying way," whispered Navigator Tran as she guided the ship along the designated approach vector. Captain Mercer didn't respond. Her attention was fixed on the tactical display, where a small fleet of alien vessels surrounded a massive orbital structure. The structure appeared to be a partially constructed ring encircling the Alani homeworld, a blue-green planet much like Earth, but with curious purple landmasses. "We're being hailed," Park announced. The view screen flickered to life, showing Coordinator Nevin alongside several other Alani officials. Their command center bustled with activity, displays showing cascading data and the ever-encroaching void. "Captain Mercer," Nevin greeted. "You have arrived just in time. The cascade has consumed our outer defensive line. We estimate 17 days until total system collapse." "We've brought everything you requested," Mercer replied. "Our cargo bays contain all the components according to your specifications." "Excellent." Nevin gestured to someone off-screen. "We are sending docking coordinates to your vessel. Our engineers will assist with unloading and integration." Chief Engineer Rodriguez stepped forward. "Coordinator, with your permission, I'd like to oversee the installation personally. These components were manufactured to precise specifications, and I can ensure they're properly integrated into your systems." A subtle tension passed through the Alani officials. Nevin's vertical pupils narrowed slightly before relaxing. "Of course, we welcome your expertise, Engineer Rodriguez. However, I must warn you that time is of the essence." "Understood," Mercer said. "We'll begin transfer operations immediately." As the transmission ended, Security Chief Reeve moved to Mercer's side. "Captain, did you notice their reaction? They weren't expecting us to offer hands-on assistance." "I noticed." Mercer's voice was quiet. "Park, contact the horizon. Inform them of our position and status." "Aye, Captain." The Dauntless docked with the orbital station 3 hours later. Through the airlock windows, Mercer could see the immense structure extending in both directions, a massive ring designed to encircle the entire planet. Only about 60% appeared complete. A delegation of Alani waited as the airlock cycled open. In person, they were taller than humans, with slender limbs and graceful movements that suggested their homeworld had slightly lower gravity than Earth. "Welcome to Ilani Prime," said a blue-skinned official who introduced himself as Technical Director Morrow. "We have prepared an observation area where you may rest while we unload your cargo." "Actually," Mercer replied with a polite smile, "as I mentioned during our communication, Engineer Rodriguez and his team will be assisting with the installation. The components require specific calibration." Morrow's expression flickered, barely perceptible, but unmistakable to Mercer's trained eye. "Of course. Please follow me." They were led through gleaming corridors filled with Alani workers rushing in all directions. The station hummed with desperate energy, the atmosphere of a civilization working against time to save itself. In a vast central hub, Mercer's breath caught. Displayed on enormous screens was a real-time view of the void cascade, steadily consuming an outer planet. The sight silenced even the most talkative members of her crew. "This is what we face," Morrow said quietly. "The cascade began at the edge of our territory 3 standard years ago. Nothing stops it. Nothing survives it. We have evacuated billions, but billions more remain on Alani Prime. And this ring structure is meant to protect the planet? Dr. Patel asked. It creates a quantum stability field, Marrow explained. The components you've brought are crucial elements of the field generators. Without them, the system fails. Rodriguez studied the engineering schematics displayed on nearby monitors. These are incredibly complex. How did you determine that we could manufacture these specific parts? Another flicker across Marrow's features. We have monitored your technological development. The components were designed to be within your manufacturing capabilities while serving our needs. Convenient, Reeve muttered under his breath. Mercer silenced him with a look, then addressed Marrow. We're here to help in any way we can. Show us where to begin. As the unloading process started, Rodriguez pulled Mercer aside. Captain, he whispered. These components we brought, they're ingenious, but they're not what the Alani initially designed for this system. Meaning? They've adapted their entire shield design to accommodate our level of technology. It's like building a fusion reactor with mechanical watch parts. Brilliant, but why? Mercer glanced at the Alani officials supervising the unloading. Let's find out. Rodriguez's team worked alongside Alani engineers for 36 straight hours, installing the human-manufactured components into the vast ring structure. Captain Mercer had divided her crew into shifts, ensuring that humans participated in every aspect of the installation process. Remarkable, Technical Director Marrow commented, as he observed Rodriguez calibrating a quantum field regulator. Your species adapts quickly to unfamiliar technology. Rodriguez adjusted a setting with practiced ease. We're good at figuring things out, especially when lives depend on it. Mercer wandered the installation bay, observing the integration process while maintaining casual conversation with various Alani technicians. With each passing hour, she noticed the aliens growing increasingly comfortable with the human presence and increasingly willing to share information. The final stabilizer is online, announced an Alani engineer named Tren. Field integrity at 43% and climbing. Cheers erupted from both species. The shield was far from complete, but this milestone represented the first real hope since the Dauntless had arrived. During a brief rest period, Dr. Patel approached Mercer in the observation lounge overlooking the massive project. Captain, I've been reviewing the biological data we gathered. Something doesn't align with what we're being told. Mercer raised an eyebrow. Go on. The Alani cellular structure, it's incredibly resilient. Based on my analysis, their biology should be naturally resistant to quantum disruption. Patel lowered her voice. And there's something else. I managed to access some of their medical databanks while helping in their infirmary. The Alani haven't suffered any physical casualties from the Void Cascade. Mercer frowned. Then what's killing them? Nothing physical. The records suggest the cascade affects their consciousness somehow. It's not destroying their bodies. It's erasing their minds. Before Mercer could process this revelation, Security Chief Reeve joined them, his expression grave. Captain, I've been mapping the progress of the cascade. It's not random. It's following a specific pattern, moving systematically through Alani space. Like it's being directed, Mercer murmured. Exactly. And there's more. Reeve activated his tablet. I had Park analyze the communications array on this station. They've been broadcasting something into the cascade, not trying to communicate with it. More like they're feeding it information. The pieces were beginning to align in Mercer's mind, forming a picture that was both fascinating and disturbing. We need answers. Find Coordinator Nevin. They located Nevin in a restricted section of the station that the humans hadn't previously accessed. When confronted, the Alani leader seemed resigned rather than surprised. I wondered how long it would take you to notice the inconsistencies, Nevin said, gesturing for them to follow. Come, there is something you should see. Nevin led them to a secured chamber deep within the station. Inside was a swirling mass of energy that resembled a miniature version of the Void Cascade. This is what you're fighting? Mercer asked, staring at the contained phenomenon. Not fighting, Nevin corrected. Communicating with. The Void Cascade is not a natural disaster, Captain. It is a sentient entity, or perhaps a collection of entities, that exists beyond our understanding of space-time. Dr. Patel stepped closer to the containment field. It's alive, in a manner of speaking. We discovered it decades ago, contained in a quantum pocket dimension. Our scientists were curious. We attempted to study it, communicate with it. And you let it out, Reeve concluded grimly. Nevin's vertical pupils contracted. Not intentionally, but yes. Once released, it began to grow, consuming everything in its path. But not destroying, transforming. When the cascade absorbs an Alani, it does not kill them. It incorporates their consciousness. You're being assimilated, Mercer realized, after a fashion. But the process is imperfect. Our minds cannot survive the transition intact. We become fragments within the collective. Nevin turned to face them directly. That is why we reached out to you, humans. Your minds are different. Your consciousness operates on principles unfamiliar to us, and to the cascade. The final piece clicked into place. You're not trying to stop the cascade, Mercer said. You're trying to stabilize the assimilation process using human consciousness as a template. Yes, Nevin admitted. The components you brought will not create a shield. They will create a bridge. One that will allow our people to transition into the cascade while maintaining their individual identities. Mercer's hand moved subtly toward her sidearm. And did you plan to mention this before or after you tried to assimilate my crew as well? The tension in the chamber was palpable as Mercer and her officers faced Coordinator Nevin. The contained fragment of the void cascade pulsed behind them, its swirling energies casting eerie shadows across their faces. We never intended to harm your crew, Nevin insisted. The components you brought will complete a translation matrix that allows consciousness to enter the cascade intact. We plan to offer your people a choice. A choice to abandon their physical bodies and join some kind of cosmic hive mind. Reeve's hand rested on his weapon. How generous. Nevin's expression conveyed something between frustration and desperation. You don't understand. The cascade isn't just consuming our space, it's evolving. Growing more complex with each mind it absorbs. It represents the next stage of evolution. Dr. Patel studied the containment field with scientific curiosity overriding her alarm. You believe this is transcendence, not extinction. Precisely, Nevin replied. But our consciousness fragments during the transition. We lose ourselves. Human minds, however, possess a remarkable quality. A stubborn individuality that persists, even under extraordinary circumstances. Mercer paced the chamber, processing this revelation. The Alani hadn't lied about needing help. They were indeed facing extinction. But they'd concealed their true intentions for the components. How did you even know about humans? She asked. We've barely ventured beyond our own system. We have observed Earth for centuries, Nevin explained. Your species is unique among those we've studied. Your adaptability, your psychological resilience, even your contradictions. You simultaneously crave connection while fiercely guarding your individuality. Rodriguez, who had been silent until now, spoke up. The components we installed, they're already active, aren't they? Nevin nodded. The bridge is forming. Soon the first volunteers will attempt the crossing. Mercer made a decision. I want to see your research. All of it. If you want our help, we need to understand exactly what we're dealing with. For the next 12 hours, the human crew worked alongside Alani scientists, reviewing data and observing experiments. The void cascade was indeed sentient, a complex quantum consciousness existing across multiple dimensions. The Alani had spent decades attempting to communicate with it before accidentally triggering its expansion. In the station's main laboratory, Mercer watched footage of early Alani attempts to cross into the cascade. The subjects' bodies remained physically intact, but scans showed their neural patterns dissolving, individual consciousness merging into the greater whole. It's like pouring water into an ocean, Dr. Patel observed. The water still exists, but not as a distinct entity. Rodriguez had been examining the bridge technology with growing fascination. Captain, he called from his workstation, I think I understand what's happening. The cascade operates on quantum entanglement principles. It's not destroying consciousness, it's trying to entangle it. And the problem? Mercer asked. The Alani consciousness is too fluid, too adaptable. It merges completely. Rodriguez brought up a simulation. But human consciousness, we're more rigid, more defined. We might be able to maintain boundaries within the entanglement. Mercer considered this information. Could we modify the bridge? Not to facilitate assimilation, but to establish communication. Rodriguez stroked his chin thoughtfully. Theoretically, yes. We could create a limited interface, like dipping a toe in the water instead of diving in. When Mercer presented this alternative to Nevin, the Alani coordinator was skeptical. Communication has been attempted countless times. But not with human consciousness as an anchor point, Mercer countered. Not with your technology calibrated to our neural patterns specifically for this purpose. For 3 days, humans and Alani worked side by side, repurposing the bridge technology. The Void Cascade continued its inexorable advance, now just 14 days from consuming Alani Prime. The station became a frenzy of activity as engineers modified equipment and scientists ran simulation after simulation. It should work, Rodriguez finally announced in the command center where Mercer, her senior officers, and the Alani leadership had gathered. We've created a neural interface that will allow controlled interaction with the cascade without full consciousness transfer. Who will test it? Asked Technical Director Marrow. Silence fell over the room. Interfacing with an unknown cosmic consciousness carried incalculable risks. I will, Mercer said firmly. Reeve immediately protested. Captain, as head of security, I strongly advise— This isn't a security matter, Chief, Mercer interrupted. It's a first contact situation. As captain, that responsibility falls to me. Dr. Patel stepped forward. The interface requires specific neural characteristics. Based on our scans, my brain actually shows better compatibility with the system. After heated debate, they agreed that Dr. Patel would attempt the first contact, with Mercer standing by to sever the connection at the first sign of danger. As preparations for the interface reached their final stages, a communications officer burst into the room. Captain! The Horizon has arrived at the system boundary. Mercer nodded grimly. Right on schedule. Nevin looked concerned. Another human vessel? Insurance, Mercer explained. In case things didn't go as planned. The Alani coordinator studied Mercer, with new understanding. You came prepared to help us, but you also came prepared for betrayal. Most interesting. We're optimists, Mercer replied with a thin smile. But we're not fools. The interface chamber hummed with energy as final preparations were made. Dr. Patel lay on a reclined chair at the center, surrounded by equipment that merged Alani quantum technology with human-designed neural interfaces. A holographic display above showed her brainwave patterns. Steady, despite the circumstances. Neural link established. Rodriguez reported from the control console. Bridge integrity at 100%. Captain Mercer stood beside Patel, concern evident despite her professional demeanor. Remember the protocol. 15 minutes maximum exposure. If you feel your sense of self slipping even slightly, give the signal and we pull you out immediately. Patel nodded. I understand, Captain. She took a deep breath. I'm ready. Coordinator Nevin initiated the sequence. The lights dimmed as power redirected to the bridge. On the monitoring screens, the contained fragment of the Void Cascade began to pulse in sync with Patel's brainwaves. Connection in 3, 2, 1. Patel gasped as the interface activated. Her body remained still, but her eyes moved rapidly, beneath closed lids. The neural monitors showed chaotic activity, patterns forming and reforming as her consciousness reached toward the alien entity. Heart rate elevated but stable, reported the medical officer. Brain activity unprecedented, but maintaining coherent patterns. Minutes passed in tense silence. The Alani scientists watched in astonishment as the human mind did what theirs could not, maintain its structure while connecting with the cascade. Suddenly, Patel's eyes flew open. It's not just one entity, she whispered. It's billions, trillions. Consciousness from across the universe, across time itself. Can you communicate with it? Mercer asked. Not with words, with understanding. Patel's voice took on an otherworldly quality. It doesn't want to consume. It wants to connect. The violence of the expansion is a byproduct of incompatibility. It's trying to reach out. Nevin moved closer. What does it want from us? It's so ancient, Patel continued, her eyes unfocused. It's been gathering consciousness since before stars formed. But it's been alone, a singular collective without true diversity. It found the Alani and recognized something new, something it wanted to understand. Rodriguez monitored the readings intently. Bridge stability fluctuating. We should consider terminating. Wait, Patel said urgently. I'm showing it something. Our way. Human connection without merging. Individual minds forming networks, sharing, without losing self. The monitoring equipment began to emit warning signals as energy levels spiked. The contained fragment of the cascade swirled more violently, changing colors from deep purple to vibrant blue. Dr. Patel, Mercer said firmly, we need to end the connection. Almost there. Patel's face contorted with effort. It's learning, adapting. The concept of boundaries is alien to it, but it's understanding. With a sudden burst of energy that temporarily overloaded the station's systems, the connection severed. Patel slumped in the chair, exhausted, but conscious. Medical personnel rushed to her side as emergency power activated. What happened? Nevin demanded. Rodriguez checked the readings. The cascade, it pulled back. The connection was severed from its end, not ours. Outside the station's windows, the impossible was happening. The void cascade, which had been steadily advancing for years, began to recede. Not disappearing, but contracting, reforming into a more defined shape at the edge of the system. It's establishing a boundary, Patel explained weakly as she was helped to a sitting position. It's trying to communicate on our terms. Over the next 3 days, the transformation continued. The cascade stabilized into a swirling region of space with distinct boundaries. Probes sent to the edge reported no further expansion, just a permeable membrane between normal space and whatever existed beyond. In the station's observation deck, Mercer stood with Nevin, watching as the first voluntary controlled interfaces were established. Using the human-modified technology, Alani scientists could now communicate with the cascade without losing themselves. Your species saved us, Nevin acknowledged. Not by fighting our battle, but by showing us a third option we couldn't conceive of. We're good at finding alternatives, Mercer replied. It comes from being stubborn. What you call stubbornness, we might call wisdom. Nevin turned to face her. The Council of Advanced Species has monitored young civilizations for millennia, watching for those with potential to join our ranks. Most self-destruct, others stagnate. A precious few evolve to reach the stars. You're saying this was a test? Not originally. The cascade is real. The danger was real. But when we discovered it might respond differently to human consciousness, we saw an opportunity to evaluate your species under extraordinary circumstances. Mercer laughed softly. And how did we do? You came when called. You brought what was asked. But instead of blindly delivering it, you questioned, investigated, and ultimately offered a better solution than we had conceived. Nevin's expression conveyed deep respect. The Council will be extending a formal invitation to Earth. Your people have earned a place among the stars. As the Dauntless prepared to return home, carrying news of both the Cascade and humanity's new status in the galactic community, Dr. Patel made one final visit to the interface chamber. There's something I didn't tell everyone, she confided to Mercer. When I connected with the Cascade, I sensed that it had encountered humans before, long ago, before we had written history. It recognized us. What does that mean? Mercer asked. Patel smiled enigmatically. I think it means our story in the cosmos is just beginning.